Welcome to another Tesla TA video. I know it's been a while since we covered Tesla, but we have some insane things that are starting to unfold on these higher time frame charts. We're going to dig through the monthly chart. We're going to dig through the 2 month chart. We're going to look at our Traders Dynamic Index and the stochastic RSI. We're going to look at our MACD. All right. We're going to look at all of these indicators and price action on these higher time frames to pull together a full picture of how the long-term picture is looking for Tesla. Spoiler alert, the tide is turning. Let's get into it. So, we got the monthly chart of Tesla pulled up, and as you can see, we also have this asymmetrical triangle, this wedge pattern, call it whatever. Listen, here's the situation. So we got this upper trend line that goes back to our all-time high of $414.15 from November of 2021. And we also have a lower trend line which connects our support levels from our lows of $101.81 and our second higher low at $138.80. And right now, as you can see, we are on the edge of breaking this wedge to the upside. I did not even mean for that to rhyme. It just came off the top of my head. That's crazy. So we are basically on the edge of breaking out of this triangle and potentially going for an all-time high retest, which from our current price of about $230.29 to the all-time high, that's almost about 80% upside. And that may not even be the biggest part of this long-term rally that could be cooking right now for Tesla. Why am I bullish on Tesla? Like, what's backing this all up? Enter the Traders Dynamic Index. This thing has tons of history that goes all the way back to May of 2011. And there are some really bullish signals that are starting to flash on the Traders Dynamic Index. First off, I want to point you guys to the orange line. All right, I've just made a video on Bitcoin, by the way, where I use this indicator and then I talk about the significance of the orange line. And I also talk about the significance of this indicator being essentially a money making cheat code when it comes to finding great long term assets with big potential in the financial markets today. So, listen, here's our situation. So, the red line is essentially our RSI, and these colored lines, such as this blue, green, orange, and cyan line, these are essentially moving averages which follow the RSI, aka the red line. And what we've noticed on the monthly chart here is every time we actually break above this orange line, prices tend to go to all-time highs soon after. Let's look at previous instances, for example. January of 2017, you can see we highlighted this with a circle right here. We first broke above this orange line after approximately from, let's see, where's our peak here? Is it 1911 or is it, okay, this is our peak right here. We can see essentially after about a 854-day sell-off, that's almost 3 years, we finally broke above this orange line and price made new all-time highs. You can see our previous all-time high before this was about $19.43. Once we broke above this orange line, we went as high as $25.80. You actually went as high as $25.97. So you can see every time we break above this orange line, it's a monumental moment, right? And this came after an 854-day sell-off that you made a new all-time high. And you can see from the point that we broke this orange line, you saw an approximately 85% rally. So it was definitely very short-lived, but it did happen over the course of a couple of months. And of course, if you played options, you made tons of money on this initial move, right? This rally. How about the next example after that? October of 2019, right? After you essentially broke above this orange line, you went on a giant rally. I think everybody knows this rally. Everybody remembers Tesla in 2019 to 2021. We essentially rallied over 2,500% in price. This was a significant rally for Tesla. You essentially went from this bottom back in where did we bottom? June of 2019. You went from this bottom of $11.80 all the way up to $414.50. Right? Obviously, there's been a ton of stock splits between them, but that is an insane move. And so these are the last two times that we've seen our RSI get above the orange line. It was 2017, 2019, and very recently, July of 2024. But right now we haven't even made all-time highs yet, which tells us that we need to have a little bit of patience. We need to have a little bit of patience. But just the fact that right now the RSI is currently holding this orange line as support and attempting to go higher, that is really bullish, because I just showed you over 12 years of data, which has essentially told us that every time that the RSI is holding above this orange line, price gets bullish. And price gets so bullish that we actually make all-time highs. So the fact that we're still just holding above this orange line, despite the sell-off that we saw in the month of August, which saw Tesla down about 7% throughout that entire month ultimately, we can close the monthly candle. Despite that, we're still holding above this orange line on our monthly chart. And on top of that, we're getting really close to this upper trend line that goes all the way back to 2021. This is a 3-year trend line. This isn't just a small little trend line. No, 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 no. This is a 3-year trend line, which means that every time that you break a multi-year trend line in either direction, whether it's down or up, you are going to get a significant move in your favor. So I just showed you data on the Traders Dynamic Index, which essentially gives you the case for Tesla starting to go long-term bullish and potentially start a multi-year rally. And we'll go over our future price targets in a second. Now I want to show you the MACD indicator. As you can see on our MACD indicator, we've had consistent selling pressure since April of 2022, right? So that means that for about 886 days, we've seen consistent selling pressure on the stock. It's been brutal being a Tesla investor for the past 3 years. But we have good news. We are just beginning to turn a corner on the MACD indicator. Now, I know that this September 2023, this bar right here, I know that is a green bar, but that was also a fake out. And another way to actually know that this is a fake out is if you actually go back to our last indicator, Traders Dynamic Index, and ask yourselves, were we above the orange line? No. If you look where my cursor is, you can see right there, MACD indicator printed green. Was our indicator above the orange line? No. That essentially told us at the time that this was a false signal. Why? Because Tesla stock was not above $300. If we were above $300, then sure, this red line would be above this orange line, and we would potentially be on a path towards all-time highs and then potentially $600, which we'll get to that. So if you combine the Traders Dynamic Index telling us that we are currently holding well above the orange line, and we're actually holding it as support, not just breaking through it, we're actually holding it as support. That's bullish. And you actually have a decent sized green candle right here, which coming off of a sell-off, this is the first time that you've done such a thing since November of 2019. I'm talking after a significant sell-off. So that was almost 4 years ago. Crazy. So we definitely see a lot of volume coming in to Tesla stock on the monthly MACD indicator. And we also see a nice cross up is forming. And you also have some fundamental things going on right now with Tesla, which potentially make this a very interesting long-term stock. We have interest rate cuts, which are going to get started on Wednesday, which, by the way, I just covered interest rates and versus Bitcoin in my last TradingView video. So after you guys finish watching this, you can go watch my Bitcoin video where I talk about how interest rate cuts are going to affect Bitcoin. But interest rates are going to affect Tesla in a positive way when they are being brought down, because cars are financed on debt. And when you make the cost of debt cheaper by lowering interest rates, you're going to drive more sales ultimately at Tesla, because the consumer starts to see more credit lines open up, and also businesses start to rehire, and salaries like to grow, and businesses like to get into expansion mode when you get lower interest rates. So because of that, you're going to have a really strong fundamental catalyst going on for Tesla. And don't forget, they also have a robotaxi that's going to be unveiled on October 10th. They also have the refresh Model Y, a cheaper, more affordable 30K, 25K car coming out in 2025. They have the semi truck, which is going to start ramping into production at the end of 2025. You have the Optimus robot, you have the energy business, which is highly profitable. So many fundamental things are starting to line up for Tesla right now to justify this stock going to all-time highs and beyond in the coming months and years. But let's just focus on the technicals for now. So if this is truly the beginning of a giant rally for Tesla stock, this is going to be where it all starts. So right now, the big test for Tesla is we need to break above this trend line, which right now this resistance level stands at about $240. If we can close above $240, or heck, if we can even close above $280 by the end of this month on Tesla, we will essentially have a straight shot to 300, 400, and 500 plus. It's that easy. So that's essentially how the bullish case for Tesla could unfold. The bearish case is, of course, you just completely collapse. You go back down to $151, which would be a 35% correction, and you potentially break this, and then maybe you double bottom at 101. I don't think that's going to happen, but if it did, we'll make a ton of money shorting it. Which, if you guys want to learn how to potentially make profit off of that move, if we were to get it, join SBT. You won't regret it. Thank me later. All right. Now let's go to the 2-month time frame. Because on the 2-month time frame, we have things that look even more interesting when we pull up our stochastic RSI indicator. I always talk about this indicator with you guys in the SBT Education Center. This is momentum. And we got 10 years of momentum to measure. So you can see when we pull this up, every time that our stochastic RSI indicator on the 2-month chart has seen a significant cross up from trough to peak, right? Just like we did from 2016 to 2017. And just like we saw in July 2019, all the way up to July 2020. And just like how we are potentially seeing right now. But if we just focus on these two instances right here, this is what gave Tesla fuel to go to new all-time highs. It basically charged up Tesla to go to new all-time highs. All right, I'm going to stop now. Anyways, so we're having a very significant momentum cross up right now on the 2-month chart. You actually have not seen momentum cross up into this level since essentially October, November of 2019. So this isn't just a small little cross up on like an hourly chart. No, this is a 2-month chart. If you see momentum crossing up like this on a 2-month chart, be prepared for fireworks. That's all I'm going to say. And especially if we can get above this 80 level and hold it. If we can get above this 80 level on our 2-month chart and we can stay above here for a prolonged period of time, this is where you start to get the biggest rallies ever in Tesla stock or any stock, any crypto, right? Every time we get above the 80 level on the 2-month chart with your stochastic RSI indicator, you see the biggest rallies come forth. As you can see, if we go back to the last time that we saw such a thing, you can see that Tesla essentially rallied about 728%. So, I'm pretty sure it's nothing too crazy when you get above the 80 level on this chart. So, yeah, I just want to show you guys this because we are seeing the beginning stages. We're seeing early stage bull run activity right now on Tesla stock. And when you combine this with everything I just showed you on the monthly chart with the Traders Dynamic Index and the MACD indicator, we're essentially ready to break this wedge to the upside. And that's pretty much what we're going to be watching for the next week, especially if next week we can get some bullish price action and momentum in Tesla stock. If we can get it in Tesla stock and across the broader markets, we're going to break this wedge, which for next week, that's actually going to be closer to 237, 238, essentially this trend line level of resistance. We put a dot on it. Yeah, it's about 238. So if we can close above 238 next week, you're going to break this wedge. And then if you can stay above here, not just peek our heads above here, but actually stay meaningfully above here for multiple weeks to go into the future, then yeah, you essentially have rocket fuel for Tesla to just take off to 400 plus. And potentially even 300 plus. I mean, honestly, I think we should first set our sights on 300 plus because we haven't been above $300 on Tesla stock since September of 2022. It's been almost 2 years. So in my opinion, Tesla most definitely deserves to go to 300 plus first. Let's also look at some interesting things that we got brewing on some of these weekly time frames as well, and potentially some we'll look at some smaller time frames as well. Weekly chart on the stochastic RSI indicator, we can actually see that okay, so this is going to be more midterm speaking, so this is essentially going to affect the next couple of weeks and months of Tesla stock price action. You can see we're actually having a cross up right now. We did kind of flatline back in August, but we're crossing up just barely. So yeah, I mean, if this can cross up and we can get above the 80 level, we can potentially see a rally that was on a similar scale of what we saw earlier this year from April to July, where we essentially ripped 81% over 70 days. I mean, if you were to see that again from now, oh, look at that, you end up at all-time highs. Ain't that convenient? So yeah, things look really crazy on the weekly chart there as well. And then I also want to lastly go over the 2-week chart, because you're also seeing a momentum cross up on the 2-week chart at approximately this 68 level. And fun fact about this is you actually have not seen such a cross up on this level since all the way back in March of 2023. You can see that when we had this cross up on this 2-week chart, peak from trough to peak, Tesla ended up rallying about 700% over a period of a year and a half. 725%. So that's the power of these momentum cross ups. Not to mention that we haven't been above the 80 level on our momentum since 2023. And this is when you tend to see major moves in Tesla stock. I'm talking 10% per week types of moves when it comes to Tesla stock. You can see on this one right here, we actually moved 25% over 2 weeks. And so, yeah, these are definitely moves that you don't want to sleep on them, basically. And let's see, what else can I show you guys? Oh yeah, we can look at our 3-day indicator as well. So, I mean, if you guys can't tell by now, we're essentially just looking at every time frame to show you guys why Tesla looks pretty bullish right now. 2-week chart, very interesting. We're holding above our 50 moving average as support. I didn't even plan on going over this indicator on this time frame, but very interesting to see us holding this level as support nonetheless. If we go to the 3-day chart, though, you can actually see the same thing. We're holding above the 200 moving average, and we're potentially headed for a golden cross sometime in Q4 of 2024. The last time we actually had a golden cross in our 3-day chart, it was all the way back here in January of 2020, and you can see pretty much the rest of it was history. So I think we've done enough yapping so far on Tesla stock. I could obviously talk about how bullish this thing looks all day, but I think it's best that we wrap this up here. But I just want to leave you guys on one note, okay? I just want to look at just on one note. All right, let's remove this. This breakout has been cooking for 3 years. The bullish breakout. When this happens, prepare to make tons of money. That's all I can say for now. One more thing too with the Traders Dynamic Index. Let's go to the 18-day chart. Similar thing with the monthly chart is happening right now. We're holding well above this orange line. And you're potentially getting ready for a cross up. If you can get this red line on this 18-day chart above this blue line, you're going to break this wedge and you're going to go on a parabolic run to $414 and beyond. How did I get these also? Just real quickly, how did I get these higher levels? Simple. Just do a Fibonacci retracement tool, top to bottom, and boom, those are your levels. $608, $987, and potentially maybe sometime in a couple years or maybe a decade, $4,000. So not to get you guys too excited, but yeah, things are looking really bullish right now for Tesla stock, and it's definitely more risky to be out of Tesla stock than in Tesla stock at this point in time. I'll leave you guys on this note for now. I'll just leave you guys looking at this chart.